I think that just moving to England and having a whole new perspective and a new, just experimenting with different writers and having lots of freedom to write inspired me to do it finally. Because I was kind of not very inspired after the second album I put out.
Lisa Marie Presley finally breaks silence on family drama. When Lisa Marie Presley finally spoke, it wasn't with the polish of a public statement or the restraint of a carefully crafted press release. It was raw, unguarded, and heavy with the weight of years she had carried in silence. For so long, she had been the quiet figure in the Presley dynasty, the daughter of Elvis Presley, the little girl in photographs at Graceland, the woman whose name alone carried both reverence and expectation. But behind the iconic surname, there was a daughter who had been living through fractures, betrayals, and wounds that the public never truly saw. Her words began with the truth of her childhood. "I didn't have a normal upbringing," she admitted, her voice thick with the memory of years trapped under a microscope. She grew up in a world where her father was worshipped as a king, and her family was dissected by tabloids hungry for scandal. There was never a moment when she could simply be Lisa. She was always Elvis's daughter. And while the world saw that as a privilege, Lisa confessed it often felt like a prison. She recalled the pressure of being a child everyone already thought they knew. Teachers, classmates, even strangers on the street treated her not as Lisa, but as an extension of her father. "It was like people didn't see me at all," she said. The expectation wasn't just to live, it was to live up to a legend. From an early age, she felt suffocated by the shadow of Graceland. But what cut even deeper than the public gaze was the turmoil inside her own family. After Elvis's death, the Presley world fractured. Relatives fought over money, power, and control of the estate. And while adults argued in courtrooms and behind closed doors, Lisa was left to absorb the tension. She described feeling torn between loyalty to her father's memory and the crushing weight of being used as a pawn in disputes she was too young to understand. Priscilla, her mother, tried to provide stability, but Lisa admitted it often came with its own pain. Their relationship, while rooted in love, was marked by constant struggle. Priscilla wanted to shield her, to keep her from repeating Elvis's mistakes, but Lisa felt smothered by control. "I wasn't just her daughter," she revealed. "I was her responsibility to Elvis." And sometimes that didn't feel like love. It felt like pressure. It was one of the most shocking admissions because it revealed not just tension, but a daughter's lingering resentment that her mother's love sometimes came wrapped in expectation. Lisa confessed that she often felt like an outsider in her own home. Graceland, to the world, was a shrine. To Lisa, it was a cage filled with reminders of the father she had lost too soon and the family battles that never seemed to end. Every photograph, every artifact, every fan at the gates reminded her that her life was never truly hers. Her silence for years had been intentional. Speaking out, she said, felt dangerous. To tell the truth meant shattering illusions, not just for the fans who still idolized Elvis, but for the family who wanted to preserve the myth. But the cost of silence was heavy. It left her carrying wounds in private while the world imagined her life was gilded with privilege. And when she finally broke that silence, the most shocking confession wasn't about Elvis at all. It was about her mother, about the push and pull that defined their relationship. Lisa admitted there were moments she felt abandoned emotionally, moments she felt unheard, moments when the distance between them grew so wide it seemed impossible to cross. She described fights that left her shattered, arguments where both said things that could never be taken back. We were mother and daughter, she explained, but sometimes it felt like we were enemies living under the same roof. Her revelations peeled back a truth the public never considered. The Presley legacy wasn't just about music or fame. It was about a family torn apart by the weight of expectation, by grief, by the constant intrusion of the outside world. And Lisa, the one person who carried Elvis's blood, was the one who bore that weight most of all. For the first time, she spoke not as Elvis's daughter, not as the heir to Graceland, but as a woman who had been fighting her whole life to be heard. Her silence had broken, and what poured out was not glamour, but grief, not legend, but loss. And as her words echoed, the world realized this was not just a daughter speaking out. It was a warning, a confession, and a plea all at once. Because Lisa Marie Presley's story was never about basking in Elvis's glory. It was about surviving the drama his legacy left behind. But her most shocking confession, the one that left even those closest to her stunned, wasn't about Elvis's absence. It was about her mother, Priscilla, and the truth she revealed about their war behind closed doors would change everything the public thought they knew about the Presley family. When Lisa Marie finally broke her silence about the family drama, she didn't point to distant relatives or outsiders circling the Presley estate. She pointed straight to the heart of it, her relationship with her mother, Priscilla. For years, the world had admired the two of them as a glamorous pair, the mother who had loved Elvis and the daughter who carried his name. But behind closed doors, their relationship was far more complicated. It was love, yes, but it was also war. Lisa described the constant tug-of-war between them. To Priscilla, raising Elvis's only child wasn't just motherhood. It was a sacred duty. She had promised herself she would protect Lisa from the same demons that destroyed Elvis: fame, addiction, self-doubt, and betrayal. She hovered, she controlled, she tried to shield her daughter from every shadow. But to Lisa, that protection often felt like suffocation. I wasn't allowed to just be me, she admitted. I was Elvis's daughter, and she wanted to make sure I lived up to that. The battles between them were both private and explosive. Lisa recalled screaming matches that ended in slammed doors, nights of silence stretched so long they felt like exile. She accused her mother of treating her like a symbol rather than a daughter, as though every mistake she made was a threat to Elvis's legacy. It felt like I was living in his house, under his rules, even though he was gone, she confessed. Money in Graceland made everything worse. Lisa inherited the Presley estate at just 25, but Priscilla had been managing it for years. To the public, Priscilla was the careful steward who saved Graceland from ruin. To Lisa, she was the mother who controlled every decision, every dollar, every piece of her father's legacy. Lisa admitted that fights over money often felt like fights over control of Elvis himself. I felt like Graceland wasn't even mine, she said. It was hers, and I was just a visitor in my own father's home. There was love, of course. Lisa never denied it. She admitted she needed her mother more than she wanted to admit. But the tension between them was constant. Every attempt at independence from Lisa felt like betrayal to Priscilla. Every attempt at guidance from Priscilla felt like chains to Lisa. They lived in the shadow of Elvis together, but they saw that shadow in very different ways. Lisa also revealed the loneliness of being compared to Elvis in ways Priscilla never seemed to understand. Fans wanted her to sing like him, act like him, be him. And when she faltered, whether in her music career, her marriages, or her battles with addiction, She felt the disappointment not just of strangers, but of her mother. It was like I was always failing both of them, she admitted. Him, because I could never live up to who he was, and her, because she wanted me to try. Priscilla, in her defense, often spoke publicly about how fiercely she loved Lisa, about how she sacrificed to protect her. But Lisa's version of the story peeled back the curtain. Protection that comes with control can feel like prison. And Lisa, with her fiery Presley spirit, refused to stay caged. Their fights weren't just about rules or responsibilities. They were about survival, about two women trying to define what it meant to be Presley in a world that never let them be free. Yet for all the conflict, Lisa admitted something that revealed just how complicated their love was. No matter how angry I got at her, no matter how much I tried to run, she was the one person I couldn't let go of, because she was the only person who really understood what it meant to live in his shadow. That admission cut through the noise because it showed the paradox at the heart of their drama. They were each other's greatest ally and greatest enemy all at once. And then came tragedy. When Lisa faced her darkest moments, her addictions, her failed marriages, the loss of her own son, it was Priscilla who stood beside her. The same mother she fought was the mother who refused to abandon her. And when Lisa finally broke her silence, she admitted it plainly. We hurt each other, but we needed each other. That's the truth no one saw. The public had always imagined the Presley women as a united front, but Lisa's words shattered that illusion. The truth was messier, more painful, more human. Their love was real, but so was their war. And that war didn't just stay behind closed doors, it spilled into headlines, courtrooms, and public battles that would expose cracks in the Presley legacy for the world to see. The Presley name had always been wrapped in myth, but Lisa Marie's revelations showed what many suspected. The cracks weren't just behind closed doors. They spilled out into the world, laid bare for the public to consume. The family's drama became headlines, their struggles became gossip, and the Presley legacy, once untouchable, was dragged through courtrooms, tabloids, and the relentless spotlight of fame. Lisa spoke about how exhausting it was to have her private life turned into a spectacle. Every misstep, every failed relationship, every battle with addiction became front-page news. It felt like I wasn't allowed to fall apart in private, she confessed. The world wanted to see me crumble. And crumble she did. Her 4 marriages, her financial troubles, her struggles with drugs, all became ammunition for the media. But what the world didn't see, Lisa said, was how deeply family conflict was woven into those struggles. The fight over Graceland and Elvis's estate was one of the most painful chapters. Lisa inherited the Presley fortune at 25, but with that inheritance came endless disputes. Priscilla had managed the estate for years and turned Graceland into a multi-million-dollar empire. But when Lisa took control, arguments over money and management ignited a war that split the Presley women apart. It wasn't just about business, Lisa admitted. It was about who owned my father's memory. Court filings revealed bitter disagreements. Lisa accused advisors of mishandling her inheritance. Priscilla was accused of clinging too tightly to the reins. The estate, meant to preserve Elvis's legacy, became a battlefield of betrayal. For Lisa, it was another reminder that being Presley was less about family and more about fighting to keep pieces of Elvis alive while everyone else tried to claim them. The public loved every moment of the drama. Tabloids splashed photos of Lisa's breakdowns and Priscilla's denials across covers. Strangers debated who was right and who was wrong as though it were entertainment. But for Lisa, it was agony. It felt like I was bleeding in public, she said, and people were cheering. Lisa's marriages only deepened the cracks. Her union with Michael Jackson, her whirlwind romance with Nicolas Cage, her divorces and custody battles, all played out under a microscope. Each failure wasn't seen as Lisa's personal heartbreak, but as another flaw in the Presley legacy. And Lisa confessed that the constant comparisons to Elvis only amplified her pain. I couldn't just be a woman making mistakes, she explained. I was Elvis's daughter making mistakes, and the world made sure I never forgot it. Her struggles with addiction nearly destroyed her. Lisa admitted that the pressure of carrying Elvis's shadow drove her to numb the pain. Drugs became an escape, a way to quiet the noise of expectation and failure. But instead of compassion, she was met with judgment. Headlines labeled her cursed, as though she were doomed to repeat her father's tragedy. It was like people wanted me to die the way he did, she revealed bitterly, like it would make the story neater. Through all of it, Lisa carried an anger that boiled beneath the surface. Anger at the media, anger at her family, anger at herself. But in her silence-breaking confession, she admitted that what nearly broke her completely wasn't the tabloids or the lawsuits. It was the sense of isolation. I felt like I was carrying my father's ghost on my shoulders, she said. And no one, not even my own family, could take it off me. And yet, even as she revealed her scars, Lisa also delivered a truth no one expected. She admitted that despite everything, she still felt closest to Elvis in her darkest hours. I understood his pain more than anyone, she said quietly. I lived it. For Lisa, the cracks in the Presley legacy weren't just public, they were personal. They connected her life to her father's in ways both haunting and heartbreaking. The world had always believed Elvis's story ended in 1977, but Lisa's silence-breaking confession proved otherwise. His struggles lived on in her, his battles echoed in her own, and the Presley legacy carried not just music and fame, but wounds that never healed. And yet, even after revealing the weight of her pain, Lisa's voice didn't end in despair, because she had one final truth to share, not about fights or scandals or heartbreak, but about what Elvis's legacy really meant to her after everything. After laying bare the pain, the betrayals, and the wounds carved by the Presley name, Lisa Marie's silence-breaking words turned to something else: love, legacy, and the truth she had carried for a lifetime. It wasn't the dramatic scandal that the world expected. It was something more intimate, more devastating, and more enduring. For Lisa, Elvis was never just the king. He wasn't the rhinestones, the screaming crowds, or the global icon etched into history. To her, he was Daddy. She remembered his warmth, the way he doted on her as a little girl, how his voice softened when he spoke to her in private. Even though she lost him at just 9 years old, those memories stayed vivid, untouched by the years of noise that followed. He was larger than life to everyone else, she confessed, but to me, he was home. That was why the burden of the Presley name was both unbearable and impossible to surrender. Lisa admitted that carrying his legacy often felt like living in chains, but it was also the thread that tied her to him. She couldn't escape it, but she also didn't want to, because as much as the world tried to own Elvis, in her heart, he was still hers. Her relationship with Priscilla, as stormy as it was, came back into focus here too. Lisa admitted they had fought, sometimes brutally, but she also recognized her mother's sacrifices. "She did what she thought she had to do," Lisa said. "She carried me when I couldn't carry myself. We broke each other, but we also saved each other." That admission softened the jagged edges of the Presley drama, showing that even in war, love had never disappeared. It had only taken a shape too complicated for the world to understand. But Lisa's final reflections weren't just about the past. They were about the future, the children she raised, the legacy she passed on. She admitted that motherhood was where she finally found peace. "I didn't want them to feel what I felt," she said of her children. "I wanted them to know love without pressure, without a spotlight they never asked for." In those words, Lisa revealed the lesson she had learned from living inside Elvis's shadow. The Presley name could be both a gift and a curse, but love could outlast it. She also spoke about the myth that surrounded Elvis, that he was a godlike figure, untouchable, flawless. Lisa rejected that idea completely. "He was human," she said firmly. "He hurt, he failed, he broke down. And that's what makes him matter more, because he wasn't perfect. He was real." That statement was perhaps the most powerful truth she offered. By breaking down the myth, Lisa reclaimed her father not for the world, but for herself. She wanted people to see the man behind the legend, the man she had known and loved, the man she missed every day of her life. And so her final words about her family drama weren't meant to destroy or scandalize. They were meant to heal. She admitted her pain, yes. She admitted the wars with her mother, the betrayal of relatives, the crushing weight of fame. But she also admitted something else, that through all of it, she never stopped loving. She never stopped fighting to hold on to her father's memory, to protect her children, to preserve some piece of herself in a world that always wanted her to be someone else. Lisa Marie Presley's silence-breaking confession revealed what the world never understood about the Presley legacy. It wasn't just music. It wasn't just fame. It was grief, resilience, survival, and love. It was the story of a daughter who spent her life trying to honor her father while also trying to escape his shadow. And in the end, it was the story of a woman who carried a burden too heavy for anyone else to understand, but who still found the strength to speak her truth. Her words closed the loop on decades of speculation. They didn't erase the pain. They didn't fix the fractures. But they gave something far more valuable, honesty. And in that honesty, Lisa finally claimed her place in the Presley story. Not as a myth, not as a symbol, but as a woman who had lived it. Lisa Marie Presley's silence-breaking words revealed the human cost of carrying Elvis's legacy, a story of love, pain, and survival. Do you see the Presley name as a blessing or a curse? Share your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more untold stories from behind the legend.